Hello and welcome to the Blessings in the Streets podcast. I am your host, Joseph B. Roberts, and in studio with us today is a phenomenal woman that I had the pleasure of connecting with a few months or so back, just through the luxuries of social media. Connected with her, been following her for a little while, and just she struck me about the different things that she's been involved in, the impact that her life is serving in the lives of others. And I had to reach out and see if she'd be willing to be a guest on the show, and she so graciously accepted that invite. And she is with us today, and I'm super excited to hear the story that she has to share, the gems and wisdoms that she has to drop on us to be inspiring and encouraging and uplifting. She is a mom, she is an entrepreneur, but most importantly, she's a woman of God. And I'm pleased and honored to have her with us today. Excited to know a little bit more about her life and her journey and her story. So without any further ado, ladies and gentlemen, it is my privilege and honor to introduce to you Miss Courtney Shingles. Courtney, thank you so much for being on the show.
I just want to be able to give it back to you as well, and thanking you for thinking of me to be a part of this opportunity on the platform. I have to say, first and foremost, that is divine intervention, divine connections. That is nothing but God that allowed this to happen. So I got to give glory back to him on that as well for just
Absolutely.
allowing me to grow into the woman that I am today to be and have this opportunity to be on the platform. So I'm excited to share.
Well, we are excited to have you, and we're going to jump right into this. But before we do, I do, of course, want to give you an opportunity to kind of give a general introduction about yourself, who you are, where you're from, what you do. Kind of give our listeners a taste of who is Courtney Shingles.
So, who am I? I am a mom of three. I have a 10-year-old, 9-year-old, and 6-year-old. They are my why, my life, my world. So everything revolves around them. I am from the Dallas, Texas area. Born and raised a Dallas girl. Ain't been too far. Oh, this is home for me. Very family oriented. Family is everything to me. God, my kids, my family is my foundation. So as far as that goes, let's see what else. I am in the financial literacy industry. So over a course of my life, learning by trial and error when it came to my own personal finances, I was blessed with the opportunity to be able to get connected to people in that field when I wanted to learn about credit and things of that manner. So I have been able to broaden my knowledge and expand my network, as well as being able to learn about it myself and be able to educate others on the importance of that and how to achieve those different credit goals or budgeting goals, or, I'm getting ready to go into real estate as well. So that is the main thing that I do as far as entrepreneurship. Learning and growing is my biggest thing. I like to be well informed and educated on what I'm doing. So I love to learn.
That is awesome. That is awesome. And like I said, ladies and gentlemen, I've been following Courtney for a while now, and she's being very modest in terms of all the things that she's got her hands in and trying to help people and inspire people and uplift people, not only personally, not only spiritually, but as she stated, in the realm of the finances, because obviously that's a big part of our lives. So, she's doing a great work. God's anointing is all over her, and it's just been exciting to just get a glimpse of her journey. And today we're going to delve even more into that. So I'm super excited about that. So with that said, Courtney, I'm a firm believer that when we talk about our journeys, when we talk about our stories, you really cannot fully capture the full essence of it all without first going back to the beginnings of how it all starts. And that's exactly what we're about to do in this segment of our show. So with that said, Courtney, I want you to think back to childhood. You said you were born and raised here in Dallas area. Kind of take us back to that time. And if you would share with us, what was it like for you growing up? Fond memories that you have about growing up, as well as if there was any challenges that you had to endure along the way in growing up. Kind of give us that foundational basis of where your story begins.
So I would have to say my fondest memories of growing up was that we didn't have social media. So I grew up in the Lake Highlands area. So we literally, me and my friends, we were outside all the time. I don't think you ever caught us inside very much. We used to, there's a creek that runs behind Northwest Highway and Plano Road. And we would walk through that creek. We knew all of the little swimming holes. We could get all through North Dallas over there in that creek. And so we were just, I mean, we enjoyed being kids. We would skate, we would bicycle. I mean, I had a very good childhood up until I'd say probably about fifth grade. And that is when life kind of changed and shifted when my parents got divorced. And when that happened, all of the things that my mother at the time, tried to keep us from just were exploded right, right in front of us. And so my dad struggled with drugs and alcohol very heavily. So I saw that firsthand in the house. And it was very difficult for me because I didn't understand it when, you go from having a childhood that, you seem as great, your friends, your foundation, your family, and, being in sports, being in soccer, volleyball, everything was together, what a normal child would seem. I didn't see the arguments, as a child, you didn't see the behind the scenes as, what the parents go through. And when they got divorced, it was just bam, it was right there in front of us. And so it was a very difficult transition for me because, I mean, it went from night and day. And I saw my dad under the influence, very heavily drunk. I used to have to hide his car keys from him, and then I would get cussed out for hiding his car keys. Sorry about that. And, whew, Lord have mercy. Let's see. It was a lot. My childhood was, as an adult now that I'm healing from, it was very trauma filled. I dealt with seeing my dad on drugs. I dealt with seeing him rent his car out to drug dealers. I saw him beat up once at one point. There's so much, man. That's a deep area of my life that now as an adult, I didn't realize carried into so many different other areas and my own journey along the way. But all in all, I appreciate all those challenges. I appreciate what I did go through and seeing my dad go through that, experiencing that with my parents. He was in and out of prison a lot, so I didn't really have that father figure there. So with him being on drugs and in and out of prison, there wasn't really that father figure there. Now, prior to me, that fifth grade split, I didn't really know that. I mean, the time that he did go to prison before that, I wasn't aware because they hid that. But moving forward, once they got divorced, it was all out in the open. So everything was known and seen. And it was just a lot of trauma, a lot. And for a kid, nobody really set me down and asked me, hey, are you okay? Well, how do you feel about this? Let me explain to you like what's going on, things like that. I just kind of got thrown in the middle of an adult situation because my dad would be like, oh, don't tell your mom this, or don't tell your grandparents that, or don't tell them. So I was like, as a kid, I'm like, oh, okay, well, I want to defend my dad. That's my dad, regardless of, I didn't really understand what he was struggling with. And by the grace of God, he has been clean and sober for 12 years now. And so I'm very grateful for that. But I didn't understand it. I didn't know what was going on. I was just like, I knew he was under the influence, but I didn't know whether it was alcohol. As a kid, you don't really understand that. You just see your parent acting out of the norm. It's not a normal behavior or, things of that manner that you didn't experience prior to that split. And so it was just a lot of things I got involved in as a child that I just didn't understand, and nobody helped me to really understand or process that. So that was the basis of my childhood. But other than that, I had a good childhood. In my younger years, moving forward to like my teenage years, I was extremely rebellious because ultimately I had internalized all the things that I had gone through with my parents and my dad and all of that. And so it was, I didn't know how to process it. My mom tried to put me in counseling and anger management and all of these other resources, but I was just, I just stuffed it and I didn't want to talk about it. And it was very difficult for me. And so I got involved. I started drinking at an early age, like 14, 15 years old, smoking weed, skipping school. I got expelled from like 3 different schools in high school. Eventually, I got put on juvenile probation for running away twice. And then my mom was like, okay, you don't want to go to school? You don't want to work? You got to leave my house. So I went and stayed with my uncle. They were actually a foster home for troubled teens at the time. Surprisingly, how ironic and fitting for that time in my life. But I went with them and lived with them. I got my GED. I started a little bit of college, but as soon as I got off probation, I went right back to the streets and very heavily involved with the wrong people, places, and things, and the wrong neighborhoods that could have cost me my life, jail, prison, a lot of different things that I was involved in that I should have just never been around. But God kept me covered during those years. And that is something when I look back over my life, I'm like, oh, thank you, because I couldn't have made it without him. So it's a glimpse in a small nutshell of my childhood.
No, you've shared quite a bit, and so of course I want to first start off with just thanking you and appreciating the fact of you being so transparent and sharing what you have. You know, a few takeaways from what you stated. Of course, first off, I immediately identified with you talking about as a kid, just kind of being out and about, like you didn't want to be in the house. And I think when that from our generation, that was a thing. We did not find enjoyment staying inside. It didn't matter what the
No,
weather was. It didn't matter, what was going on. We were riding bikes. We were running around. We were getting into whatever we could get into, staying out as late as we possibly could stay out without getting in trouble because we just enjoyed the outdoors and hanging out and
correct.
socializing. Whereas, fast forward to today, our kids are not like that anymore. They're very content with their phones and staying in their room and basically being antisocial in their own way or being social only virtually through social media platforms and things of that nature. So I totally, connect with that when you speak about, that enjoyment, those memories of childhood.
Yes.
And then of course, you obviously had to deal with the challenge of divorce, and that's never easy on a kid, even if the divorce is smooth, if you will, for lack of
Mm-hmm.
a better way of saying it. Um, it's the simple fact that you're a kid is just hard to process, especially if you were used to
Correct.
both parents being there, and then all of a sudden now they're not there, and then you add the layer of there being, alcohol and drug issues on top of that.
Mm,
It's naturally understandable for it to be something that you really had a great challenge, if you will, of trying to process all of that. And while you did mention that there would be a time later on in life that your mom would try to get you connected with different services, counseling services and things like that, which is a great thing. I don't know if per se it was perhaps too late by that point to get you connected, because you mentioned multiple times about nobody just ever sat me down and said anything. And again, going back to the earlier times in life when parents kind of kept these things from their kids, it's one of
mm-hmm.
those catch-22 moments. It's like, on the one end, it's good that the parents didn't do things like argue or bring up problems in front of the kids, so that's a good thing. But then sometimes it was almost to the detriment of the kid when they don't expose them. And we even carry that, unfortunately, kids who came up in that era
Mm-hmm.
do the same thing at a more magnified level as adults when we become parents on our own, because we get so wrapped up in trying to shield our kids and keep them away from the quote unquote bad things of life, that they don't have the opportunity to adapt any type of survival skills. They don't have any, because we've placed them in this bubble of protection because we don't want them to get exposed to anything negative, anything anything that's against what they want to do, whether it's something completely bad or it's just simply we don't want them to experience any harm. We don't want them to experience any letdowns or sadness and again, as a parent, that's a beautiful intent. but sometimes
Mhm.
again to the detriment of our kids. And so, you kind of experienced that to a certain degree back then, just by not being told anything and just kind of being left to your own vices to figure it out. You now build in, you're building up all of this stuff inside and you're withholding it. And then, so again, by the time you get some help, you're not really feeling, getting that out. And then, as you said,
No,
when you do get it out, well, let's put it like this: you got it out. You just got it out in terms of, as you refer to, is that that
rebellion.
rebellious side of you. That's how
Mhm.
you were getting it out, but it was
Correct.
getting it out in an unhealthy way, getting it out in a way that kind of led you down some paths that you would have otherwise, now, like you said, as an adult thinking back, you're like, no, that wasn't perhaps the best way that I should have did that. But you didn't know. So we don't speak of this to blame you. You were just doing what naturally felt best to do in that particular moment in time. And the thing is you're not alone. There are a lot of kids who have gone through, whether it be in the past or currently in the present, are going through or have gone through that very same thing. And so that's why I said I appreciate so much that you being transparent with that, because there's going to be somebody that has an opportunity that's listening in, that they're relating to you right now. They're like, that's me, been there, done that, got the t-shirt, and they're seeking a way of how to bounce back, how to recover from that. And so that's what's going to
Mhm.
make your sharing of your story today so powerful, because just looking at you, just knowing what I know about you, even in the short time that I've had a chance to connect, you clearly have been an example of, despite what you've gone through, despite the storms that you've gone through, despite the moments of darkness that you've gone through, there was an opportunity presented to you for you to come up out of that. And you've made no secret about who's responsible for that, and that's God himself.
Yeah.
And so there is a way out. We don't have to look at our storms, we don't have to look at these moments and trying times in life as being the end of the story, because it's not. And so
Yeah.
that's what makes you being vulnerable and transparent as you have been, just even in the early goings of the show, so powerful, so impactful. So I appreciate that.
No
um
problem.
so, Courtney, I mean, as you know, obviously you've kind of shared some glimpses of what things were like for childhood for you, and you enter into that adult stage and you're starting to gain more experiences of life, and you're becoming a mom, and just, again, just living life just as we all do, kind of figuring it all out, trying to find our direction, find our path. But in doing so, there are going to be moments in time where we experience a series of storms that come our way, and they begin to multiply and exacerbate to levels, and sometimes to some very extreme levels, that every now and then when we get hit with a storm, that we kind of sit back and go, wow, how am I supposed to get through this? I might be really good at navigating my way through challenging times, but sometimes you get hit with a blow that brings you to your knees and you don't see a way out. You're doubting, you're questioning, how am I going to ever survive this? How am I going to ever overcome this? So with that said, if you would tell us about a time where that's exactly how you felt. Like, I felt like I was at the lowest of low. I don't know how I'm going to get through this, how I'm going to overcome it. Clearly you're here today. You're alive and kicking, so we can just trust that God was able to deliver you through. But at that time, you
You
might have not
did.
felt like that. You might have been questioning. So with that said, kind of walk us
Yeah.
through whatever it is, the story that you're about to share. Kind of walk us through what that experience was like for you, and what ultimately led you to begin to see some light at the end of the tunnel as you were kind of coming up out of that situation.
So that is hard. I have so many of those stories. Um, just to kind of give a back end that leads into where I am at, and the last storm of my life that really made the biggest impact on me, and God gave me that full deliverance um, from the challenges I faced over the course of my adulthood, early 20s, up into probably my mid 20s. Well, I say like 18 to mid 20s. I was actually, like I said before, very involved in the streets. Um, I was nowhere where I should have been. I was a dancer for many years of my life. So I was involved in a lot of very fast ways and things that I carried a lot of guilt, shame, bad habits, behaviors, um, so many things that were, how do I put it, that I learned just by the people I was surrounded with for so long, by the lifestyle that I was influenced by and that I involved myself with for so long, that over the course of the years, this last time that I struggled with alcohol and substance abuse, for I separated from my ex-husband in 2020, and I had been sober for a year prior to that separation. When that separation time came, I was like, oh, okay, I know this is what I'm supposed to do. I was, confident in that decision. And then I just was hit with an overwhelming amount of emotions that I was not ready or prepared to deal with. Because in my past, I had not really sat with myself. I had just, all I ever knew was just to be strong and keep going. Be strong, keep going. I was always the provider for myself. I was always the, you know, friend that seemed like I had it together, but really I was just a mess on the inside. I just knew how to keep a smile on my face and make the best of all my situations, no matter what my struggles were. So in life, I've always been that person that it doesn't matter what you go through. And I have learned that adversity is our benefactor. We actually benefit from going through those storms. They are actually there to teach us something. So this last time that I struggled with alcohol and substance abuse, during that, I'd say from 2020 to about the end of 2021, 2022, because May 9th will be my 2 years sober. So glory to God for that, because I prayed for days like this. So it was just, he allowed me to go through so much internal chaos with the fact that I had never sat down and actually healed. I never sat down and actually unpacked my child. I was responding, I was reacting, I was screaming that broken little girl down on the inside. From in every other direction and relationship in my life stemmed from all that brokenness. Me filling voids with relationships or alcohol, or keeping myself so busy with the kids that I just never had the time to sit down and deal with me. I would help everybody else, but I never sat down and helped myself. And so this last time, God sat me down and was like, we're going to get this together this time. And I just knew at that point that I was like, I have had enough. I have to heal. I have to unpack this trauma. I have to understand my triggers. I have to sit with myself and feel what it is so I can understand where it's coming from. So I don't have to avoid it anymore. And that's, I think, a lot of the biggest thing that we have is, the older generations. And it's one reason that I also learned my parents can't teach me this, because the older generations were not taught that. They were not taught to process emotions, to deal with things. And I've learned as I'm healing, there's relationship issues that I still have, more so with my dad because he's a male, versus my mom. My mom's been more accountable over the years as she's gotten older to have a better relationship. But they weren't really taught those things. They don't process and really get a hold of what it is they experienced in their own childhoods, because healing was not taught back then. Like, okay, this just kind of pushed under the rug. It's swept under the rug kind of thing, and not talked about. And so I've learned that, I can't blame my parents for the things that I went through. I mean, they are responsible in a sense, yes, but at the same time, they can't give me something that they were never taught or they were never given, because they don't know how to. And unless they have enough self-awareness and self-reflection be able to say, okay, well, this is what she's missing. This is what she needs. That is one reason why now I am the way that I am with my kids. I have regular talks with my kids about, hey, what is it that you need from me as a mom that you may not be getting from me right now? You know, it's okay for you to sit down and tell me, hey, mom, I don't like when you do this, as long as it's respectful. This is something that bothers me, because I think that's important. It's not all about us just parent, parent, parent. It's about being the parent that your child needs. And I think for me, that was so important, and a lesson that I learned over the years and during the course of my healing over the last 2 years, is to be that for them, because I never had that. And so we learn those things and we pick those things up as we really start to understand who we are and what we went through.
Wow. Wow. Um, again, again, thank you for your transparency with that. You know, one of the things that I heard you speak to was about, the challenge of overcoming, you know, you used, one of the words you used was guilt. The
Mm-hmm.
guilt you felt about, whether it was decisions that you had made, choices that you had made as you were dealing with the hurts and pains, whether it was, a separation from your husband, to, even going all the way back again to childhood, about, what was going on with your dad, and how that disrupted the whole family structure and things like that. And you having to get to that point where I just had to finally just like sit still and stop for a moment, and to say, enough is enough, and part of what God does at times is not that he is, not near you, not observing what's going on, but sometimes he has to, in order to facilitate a closeness between you and him, he has to let you go through your situation that you're going through, because what you were doing, what many of us that are guilty of, is we find ourselves in a challenging, stressful, high anxiety moments of time, emotionally draining moments, and we think that the answer to it all is to fix ourselves. That we try to self medicate, if you will, whether it's, like
Mm-hmm.
as you stated, whether it's staying busy, whether it's indulging in practices and behaviors that may make us feel good temporarily, but doesn't necessarily fix the problem. And so we have to sometimes be allowed to exhaust all of those options, to the point to where we get, not to the point where we are totally tapped out, but we'll get us to the point where it literally brings us to our knees, and we have to say, okay, I give up, I give in, Lord, let you
Yeah.
have your way, because I don't know what else to do. And God is standing nearby with a smile on his face, like basically saying, I know, I've just been waiting on you. Whenever you're ready, and now that you've made it clear that you're ready, now I can step in to your situation, and begin to show you how this works, to begin to show you how you come up out of this. But also too, and you even mentioned this before when you talked about, the benefits that come with being in the moments of adversity, and you're absolutely correct with that. God also at times allows us to go through what we go through as well, because he's already setting up the opportunity for you,
Mm-hmm.
not just for you to be blessed, but for you to be a blessing to other people. See, for you to come alongside others in their times of need, to be of encouragement, to be of empowerment, to be of inspiration to other people, regardless of whatever areas that those may be in. Um, you have to have gone through something. How do I relate to you? If I'm coming to you and I'm struggling with substance abuse issues, or I'm struggling with, trauma, if you've never been through anything that you can speak to, how do I relate to that? So you have to, one of the prices that you have to pay when you're called by God to do works like this, it requires you have to go through some stuff, and you were no different. Same with me. You have to go through some things, in order to prepare you to be ready for the calling that God has set forth for
Right.
you, to be prepared for the purpose that he has set for you. And, and I'm a firm believer that when we talk about, like I said, that healing process, a lot of times our healing is stagnated or stalled, if you will, because we haven't forgiven. Whether
Oh,
it's
yeah.
forgiving other people, but even more importantly, a lot of times we haven't forgiven ourselves. So I'm
Amen.
beating myself up. I'm tearing myself down. Now, mind you, I done already talked to God. God has already forgiven me. The price has been paid. the situation has been, it's a closed matter as far as he's concerned. But here we are still beating ourselves up, whatever that beating ourselves up looks like, whether it's
Correct.
like overindulging in negative and non-productive behaviors. We're just beating ourselves up. And he's
Mm-hmm.
like, I've already let it go. Why haven't you? When are you going to start forgiving yourself? Or when are you going to start forgiving that person who wronged you, who did something to you that was hurtful, who wasn't there for you when they needed to be? Just because you forgive somebody else doesn't mean that you condone the behavior that they displayed.
Right.
As they always say, that forgiveness was never for them to begin with anyway. It was for you. So you can do what? Heal. I can start the
Correct.
healing process. I can begin to not forget that it ever happened. That's not what we're asking that people do. You ain't got to forget that it ever happened. But you do need to have a moment in time that after you've had your human moment processing of it, whether it was crying, whether it was anger, whether it was screaming and hot, whatever that was, once you got that out, you now have to have a moment where you move forward, where you learn from the experience and move forward versus staying stuck in the mud, staying in the same endless cycle where you don't go anywhere. You're busy, you're moving, but you're not progressing. You're not forward, moving in any type of way. And so I see
Right.
some of that in you, but I'm also thankful, as I know you are, thankful to God that there was that there was that light bulb moment, that there was that realization moment
Yes.
where you said, "Look, you know what, I gotta stop this, because I'm never going to get to where you have for me to go if I keep staying stuck in this pity party moment, woe is
Mm.
me moment." We all are going to go through storms. Nobody's excused or immune from that. It's not that you go through, that's the issue. It's how you respond to it when it happens. Do I allow it to defeat me, or do I allow myself an opportunity to grow and learn from that adversity? Do I allow myself to prosper and be, elevated to a new version of me, a better version of me as a result of that? And it's clear that that's what you've allowed yourself to do. It took a while, but eventually you've gotten to that point where you begin to start to see that light where, okay, I'm coming up out of this and I'm now open and I'm now focused. I'm now locked into what God has for me. Take me where you desire for me to go. And that's the path that I'm seeing that you have allowed yourself to get on. And God is doing accordingly as he promised, to work you through those situations one day at a time, one step at a time. It's not an overnight fix, but at least I'm progressing in the right direction.
Amen.
So that's awesome that you're sharing that. So awesome. So Courtney, when you do find yourself, facing challenging times, moments of adversity. I mean, I know you've shared some pretty heavy stuff, but all storms that we have in life aren't going to always be deep into the level of magnitude to some of what we've talked about so far. Sometimes it's just everyday lifing type stuff. But
Mhm.
nevertheless, when you are facing challenging moments of adversity, barriers or obstacles in your way, I'm curious to know, what is your routine or your process or your regimen, if you will, that you like to tap into, that you like to do, that kind of helps you stay level headed, stay focused, stay locked in while you're trying to process through whatever it is that you're dealing with, that challenge of the day that you're up against? What do you like to do that is the good, healthy, workable practice for you?
So the number one thing that I do is my worship music. That is my go-to and has been for years. I mean, years. My worship music has got me through my darkest moments, my lightest moments. But I realized for me, anxiety was one of my triggers. And when I have those moments of difficulty throughout the day, or I feel overwhelmed, or, uh, just facing those random moments that you have that things may not be going your way, I immediately go into and I turn my worship music on, because for me it's powerful, and it literally will take your mind off of your problems and turn it right back over to the problem solver, because a lot of us, we like to be in control of things. We plan things, we expect them to go a particular way, and when they don't, it can be frustrating, it can be overwhelming, it can test us in many different ways. But for me, that is, like I said, my number one go-to is prayer. My outlet is working out. The gym has become one of my favorite outlets of all, because it's where I just go. It's like my quiet place. It's where I can just release. Working out and sweating, and just, it raises your dopamine. makes you feel better. It's like all that stress and heaviness that you have on you before you go in the gym. Whew, it's like a breath of fresh air when you walk out of there. You know, you kind of, it's a way for, that's my release as well. One of my other ones is my jazz music. I listen to my jazz music all the time. I'm a lot more particular about the music that I listen to now versus when I was younger, just because of what I feed my mind daily. A lot of people don't realize the music that you listen to, your subconscious is taking that in. You're speaking the lyrics. There's so much power in the things that you speak over your life and yourself. And when you're constantly feeding your mind the negative lyrics and music and things, it eventually becomes a part of your behavior, a part of your attitude, a part of your vocabulary, a lot of different things. So I'm much more mindful about the music that I listen to, and jazz has become one of my favorite. It's very calming to my mind. It's very calming. And it just helps me to stay focused during the day when I'm doing stuff. And, you know, if I'm stressed out or whatever, it's a calming thing for me. I journal. So I always get to my journal because eventually one day I plan on publishing a book about healing and the things that I've been through to, God willing, be able to help somebody else that went through or is struggling with something. So I journal a lot. It's a way for me to just kind of clear my mind. Sometimes we have things that we like to say or we want to say to somebody or that we may be struggling with. And I've learned that when we write it out in a letter, it's almost like getting it off your chest, you know, and it's a much more healthier and productive way, because sometimes when we say it to the person, we get a response that we may not want and it may not go the right direction. So if you just kind of learn to journal and get it out, sometimes you don't always have to say it to that person or that thing. You can just get it out and just write it on paper. And it's very similar to just venting, you know, it's a different form of venting. So I have quite a few different ways that I work through those challenges and difficulties throughout the day.
I love that. I love that. Very, very broad, but at the same time, very impactful. And I specifically like the reference that you made about, what you like to, being mindful about what you are feeding into your mind, particularly in the pathway of music. I know personally that's something, a conversation that I have quite often with my own daughter, about that.
Too.
Like sometimes she's bopping to a song, and I'm like, and I'll just ask her, just kind of not so much as a reprimand, but just to kind of quiz her to see if she's paying attention. I'm like, do you even understand what this song means? Do you understand what this person says or what they're representing? And sometimes she knows, but most times she doesn't. And I'll explain it. I'm like, you realize that he or she is talking about this or that. You're like, oh. And I said, in understanding that sometimes what gets us caught up is, and that's just the genius of what music is about, is, these days you can be a successful music artist, and just based off the fact that you got a good beat. And so that's the hook is, I'm bopping my head to it and all of that. And the next thing I know, I'm reciting and saying all the lyrics and everything, but I'm caught up in the beat, but I'm not realizing what I'm speaking to. And in turn, what is internalizing inside of me. And as you stated, that can change your whole mindset, your whole demeanor, your whole way of thinking without it'll catch you off guard. It'll sneak inside of you, and you won't even realize it until it's too late. So I'm glad that you brought that up, because that is definitely a very important thing to mention. And just in general, when you talk about whether it's the music or whether it's other outlets, the whole idea is that when you're finding yourself faced with a challenging and an adverse moment, before you try to come with a solution to the problem, one of the first things that you're needing to do is to just kind of calm down, because it might have been something that came to you by surprise. You weren't expecting this morning, and boom, here it is. And it's very easy for us to get our emotions out of whack. It's very easy for us to get so wound up, and you got to be like, okay, let's pause for a moment. And so whatever that thing is that allows you to pause and calm down, so you can clear your mind, clear your thoughts in a way that now when I come back to revisit this situation, I'm doing it with a clear perspective. I'm focused, I'm locked in, and I'm more likely now to have a positive and more appropriate response to the situation versus one that's a knee jerk or an overdue or anything of that nature. And we've all been guilty of that. We just You
Oh,
talked about
yeah.
earlier about the journaling. Sometimes it was better for me to just write it down before me to say it. Because if I just blurted it out, it might not come out the way I need it to come out. Maybe I just need to process it in writing first, and then if I need to speak it to somebody later, I'm able to do it in a more constructive, appropriate, even respectful way so that I
Mm,
can ultimately achieve what it is that I'm setting out to achieve in facing whatever that challenge or moment of adversity that I'm dealing with at that particular point in time. So, again, all key things that you mentioned, and there's no one right way to process, but I would say to anybody, make sure that you have some process. You should have
oh,
something, and don't be afraid to adjust and modify. Sometimes you want to add something new to it. That's cool. Sometimes you need to take something away because it's just not working for you.
yep.
That it should be a constant work in progress that you fine tune and tweak and work through as you go along. So great stuff. Great stuff. So Courtney, if you had an opportunity, if you could speak to that younger Courtney that, was traumatized by the split up of your parents and, to see your dad in the situation that he was in, not knowing how to work all of this stuff out and you found yourself as you, in your words, you're in this rebellious zone and it's taking you not only through childhood, but even into adulthood. If you could speak to that younger version of yourself, or perhaps somebody is listening that's exactly where they are right now. They're so emotionally wound. They're hurt. They just don't know how to process all of what they're going through. They don't know who to talk to, who to trust. They're carrying around guilt, all of those negative energies that is prohibiting them from being able to move forward, to prohibiting them from being able to heal. What would be your words of encouragement, your words of inspiration to that person that's going through it right now, or the younger Courtney, if she was online right now, you could speak to her. What
Mhm.
would be those words that you would have to share that you think would be a best, adjustment, a plan of action, if you will, to properly do things a little bit better and a little bit more beneficial way in dealing with such challenging moments?
Um, I sit back and I would tell my younger self or anybody that is going through those challenging moments to first and foremost lean into God, because that is the number one thing. That relationship, it doesn't mean that you have to be in church every single Sunday. It's the relationship that you have with him. It's your prayer life. That is what you need during your hardest moments, because that is what kept me together all these years. That is what kept me going. That is what picked me back up every time I fell down. Um, and it's just like, I would tell that younger me, I made it and
Mm.
I'm not done yet. I'm just getting started. Um, Thank you to my younger self for not giving up, for continuing to push through every stronghold, every adversity, every trial, tribulation. Everything that I have been through served a much greater purpose, and I would not change anything about my life or what I've experienced, because God gave me that testimony. God allowed me to experience everything I've been through. And one of the things that we talk about in the recovery ministry that I serve in is that I thank God for my addiction. I thank God for my alcoholism. I thank God for my story. Because if I didn't have my story, that was one of the best things that happened to me, because it allowed me to be the woman that I am today. It allowed me to be somebody that God uses to touch people that are still in broken areas. It allows me to be able to relate. So don't be ashamed of anything that you've been through, because no matter what, like it says in Romans 8:38 through 39, that nothing can separate you from the love of God. Nothing you do, God does not hold you to shame. He does not hold you to condemnation. He does not want you to carry that guilt, that burden. He wants you to lay it down and give it to him so he can help you and mold you into who he has called you to be. That there is nobody that is too far gone for him to be able to turn around and help you get back on your feet and still walk out the purpose that he has for your life. Because I guarantee you, he's got somebody that's going to cross your path that he needs you to speak life into, to pour into at some point down the road. And you are just as purposeful where you are in your trial, in your storm, in your addiction, in your lifestyle. You still have purpose right where you're at. So don't be ashamed of what you're going through, what you've been through, what your past is, what your disappointments are, what your family thinks about you, what your friends think about you. I've lost a lot of people all the way on along the way, but I wouldn't say that I lost it. It's I wouldn't close those doors, so God closed them for me in a way that I never expected, but he also turned around and replaced them with much better people. And so it's just like we really have to, you have to trust where you are in your life, and you also have to make the decisions that you need to in order to remove yourself from the people, places, and things that may be hindering you. And it's hard. I mean, when I tell you it is a very difficult thing. It took me a very long time to transition my mind frame and my thought process because I had so much built up in my life, anger, resentment, unforgiveness. One of the ones that was very hard. I didn't forgive myself for the longest time. So if I were to tell that to somebody else, please learn how to forgive yourself. And sometimes that comes with prayer constantly throughout the day. I go in prayer multiple times because it's like those feelings will come on. And that's nothing but the enemy that creeps into your mind to try to detour you. Because once the enemy knows that you've found that confidence in Christ, that you found that fire again to get back up, he's going to try to knock you down. He is going to try to creep in your mind, and that's where it all starts, is right here. So you got to find a way, affirmations, plug into something that will fill your mind with positivity, and find an outlet that when the enemy does creep in, that's why my worship music is one of my main things, because I used to always say I keep my worship music on high so I can drown out the sound of the enemy, because that's where he goes first. He goes for your mind and your thoughts and how you feel about yourself to try to confuse you and make you feel not worthy of God's love, not worthy of God's forgiveness. And that's not true. You are definitely worthy, and you have purpose, and there is nothing that you do, no sin, no mistake, nothing that you do that God cannot forgive you, love you, pick you back up, and turn you back around. So love yourself, embrace your journey, and just keep putting one foot in front of the other. One good decision a day will start to create a new life for you in time.
Love that. Love that. Very well said. Very well said. Anybody who's needing to hear this message that Courtney is sharing, please embrace it. She's telling you nothing but truth right now. And that forgiveness piece is such a big deal. Like I said, even if you got to do it multiple times a day, because as she stated, the enemy is looking for ways to infiltrate you. Mind, body, soul, whatever way he think he can, he's going to try to creep in, especially if he sees that you're understanding that your worth and your value. If he sees that you're leaning into a relationship with God, he is infuriated by that, and is going to try to do anything to knock you back down. You spoke about, hey, I've recovered, I've bounced back from, the addictions and the things of that nature. And, people are struggling right now. We understand that a lot of people are struggling with that right now. And the minute you have maybe a week away from it, or a month away from it, don't be surprised if the enemy is trying to dangle it in front of your face, or create an opportunity for you to latch back onto that. And one other thing real quick that I wanted to tap into that you said, I lost a lot of friends and people in my life along the way, but really, it really wasn't a loss. There was just some people had to be removed from your life and I love your honesty in that, because we all struggle with that. Sometimes people get removed from our lives that they should have been gone a long time ago, but we didn't have the courage. We didn't have the fight to remove them. But God loved us enough. His unconditional love for us was, and what he knows already is the direction that we're going,
that there's just some
Amen.
people who can't come with you. And it's not that you think you're better than them. It's not
Not
because,
at all.
they're beneath you and you're above them. It's not a thing of that. It's just that sometimes people are not going where you're going. They're not doing what you're doing. And
Correct.
they're going to be more of a hindrance than they're going to be of a help to you for a variety of different reasons. And so God is saying you have to walk away from them. Now that doesn't mean that there won't be an opportunity to where you might have a day that you're actually pouring into them, that you're actually empowering them and inspiring them. But for right
Yes.
now, you might have to remove yourself from people, places, platforms, circumstances, situations in order to walk in that purpose that God has for you, because that purpose and only can allow certain things to be up in it, to be around it, for it to be, manifested. If I'm dragging that old baggage from back in the day and them old habits and those old behaviors that are contradicting what
Yep.
we're trying to do here, then I'm not going to be moving forward I'm not going to be progressing. And so I thought that was so powerful that you make mention of that, and so important. Don't get caught up in that. We've been knowing each other for this long, or we've been just because you know somebody a long time, or just because
Yep.
you did a thing for a long time, doesn't mean it's supposed to be forever. Some
Amen.
situations, some things that we go through are literally just seasonal. It was
Mm-hmm.
a season that I was going through. Just like seasons change, it can't stay spring forever, can't stay summer forever, fall or winter forever. When I go to that new season, there's some things that die off. There's some things that get left behind until that season comes back around again. So all of those things are definitely things that you want to keep in mind. And Courtney, you just kind of packaged that so well. So I appreciate those words of encouragement that you've offered, because somebody's going to be blessed by that. Somebody needed to hear what you just said. If they weren't listening to any part of this podcast, they needed to hear that part. That's the difference maker. That's the game changer for them. So, um, so with that said, Courtney, this has been just a phenomenal time that we've had together. I've thoroughly enjoyed you being on the show, just getting to know multiple layers of you and who you are and what you're about and what you're doing. I'm super excited for how God again is moving in your life and what He's already done and what He's still going to be doing. So I appreciate it so much that you decided to accept the invite and be on the show and doing what you're doing here, because it's so needed. It's so powerful. It's so important. But as is customary here on the Blessings in the Street podcast, before I let you go, I do want to take an opportunity to love on you, to celebrate you, to acknowledge you. So with that said, if you got any things that are coming up, whether it's professionally or personally, that are either going on right now or coming down the pike that you'd like to share, that you can share with us, please do. Because again, we want to be able to support that and acknowledge it. And people need to figure out ways to connect with you to benefit from any of the things, the works that you're offering, services that you have. Please share it. What's going on with you? What can we look forward that's coming up or that's going on right now that we need to celebrate that's going on with you?
So what's going on right now is that I can, of course, help assist is I offer credit repair services, a multitude of financial literacy, just education, wills and trust. I just took my real estate exam, so I'm getting ready to step into that field. Um, Ultimately, I feel like my life is just getting started, and it's probably the most exciting time of my life. So I'll leave that nugget too. I'm about to be 36. So any of y'all that think that time is lacking, trust me, you have time to get it together. But don't wait for forever. Um, Also, I mean, if you guys want to follow me on Facebook, Instagram, my Facebook is Courtney Shingles. It is a public profile, so you can follow, add. I am always, and I want to leave that door open at all times. I am always there for somebody that needs prayer, that needs guidance, that needs struggling with addiction. There are my ministry that I serve with. If you need a place to plug into, just to have some accountability, to have a place to go on Friday nights, besides an NA or AA group that's more spiritual based, you can definitely reach out to me and I will plug you in. I know what it's like to go through those seasons and not have somebody. So, prayer, encouragement, if you need something, I am an open book, as you can tell. So, I just like to encourage and speak life into people. There's so much that I have planned that I don't necessarily have in motion yet, but eventually God will allow those plans to come into fruition as I put them together. And I will definitely keep y'all updated as time goes on, the new things that are coming about. But right now, I am focused on just building my financial literacy business and educating and helping as many people as I can. That's the biggest thing. I like to see other people succeed. I like to see people winning. There is enough opportunity out here for all of us. I'm not a gatekeeper, so if you have a question, please do not hesitate to reach out and ask me. I will answer it, or if I cannot answer it, I will figure it out and get back with you. So
That is awesome. And so if somebody is interested in your financial services, you said the best way is to just message you on Facebook, or is there an email or
yeah,
phone
I
number, anything
have
like that?
the
Or
yeah, I have an email. My email is Courtney Shingles at fffconsulting.org. If you want on YouTube, like whenever you drop it, you can put my info in there and I'll send it to you and they can reach out and contact me if they need anything.
awesome, awesome. And I will say this, it's something really funny real quick. Courtney, of course, posts on her page all the time. So you heard her say that she does credit repair services, but I just want to put this out here. She put it on her page. If you can, in case you haven't seen it, if you're interested in needing a 800 plus credit score in the next few days, don't reach out to Courtney. Call God, because she says while she's good at what she does, she is not a
Yeah,
miracle worker. And
not
so
at all.
she cannot transfer your 300 credit score to an 800 in over the weekend. That's not going to happen. So just putting that out there. That was her words, not mine, that she put out there. But I thought that was hilarious when I saw that.
Yeah. You'd
So,
be surprised the stuff you come across in the industry. But I mean, I'm just like, look, we'll get it together. I can help you get there. But yeah, I can only do so much on my part. So
just not by Monday.
yeah, yeah.
So.
No, not by Monday. Please no.
So that's awesome. But again, Courtney, doing some great works. Love what you're doing, love what you're all about. And and I'm just, claiming victories right now and everything that you're touching and everything that you're doing, that you'll continue to be a game changer, helping people, from all walks of life and all facets and forms, Lord, whether it's, again, the financial services or just extending the opportunity to just say, hey, if you need somebody to pray with, somebody to talk to or whatever, I'm making myself available for that. So you can't ask for anything more. So I'm encouraging my listeners, please follow, please check her out. Please tap into her services if that's something that you need right now, or if you know of somebody who's in need of that, please share that information, pass it along. I mean, this is what's necessary. This is what it's all about, being able to pour into and help others. And if you've enjoyed, our conversation today, you've enjoyed the broadcast and what we're doing here, please subscribe, please share, please like, please comment, because again, this is what the Blessings in the Streets podcast is about. We want to inspire, we want to encourage, we want to uplift. You can see we want to be transparent and authentic and being raw with it and sharing our stories. Not because we're seeking somebody to feel sorry for us or that we're thirsting for attention, but we're really just trying to connect and help people, trying to spread the love, if you will, spread the knowledge, if you will. And most importantly, making it clear and evident without any reasonable doubt whatsoever that it all begins with God, all begins with that relationship with God. And so I'm here to tell you, if you don't have such a relationship, today is a mighty fine day to make that happen. It'll be the best decision that you've ever made. You've heard testimony of Courtney. You've heard testimony of myself. We're not telling you something that we randomly heard somebody say. We're telling you something that we know. From firsthand experience about how God has moved us, touched us in our respective lives, and in particular in our storms. Those storms are not the end of your story. Embrace them. These are opportunities. These are moments in time for you to be a better version of yourself, to be used by God in a mighty and magnificent way. Don't run from that. Don't feel bad about it. Don't feel guilty about it. Embrace it. Take it for what it is. But just make sure that you don't try to take it all on by yourself, because you don't have to. You were not meant to do life by yourself. There's a God out here who loves you unconditionally, wants nothing but the best for you. Lean into him, build that relationship with him, and just watch him work miraculous wonders and blessings and miracles in your life and use you to be the same way in the lives of other people. So with that said, remember, here at the Blessings in the Streets podcast, this is the place where your story is your glory, where your relationships are relevant, and your journey is your joy. I am your host, Joseph B. Roberts. Thank you so much for tuning in. And until next time, you keep fighting that good fight. You keep persevering. You keep leaning into that relationship with God, allowing him to be your guide. It's your shielding of protection, the eyes and ears to navigate you through the storms of life. Lean on him. Love on him. He loves you. He wants nothing but the best for you. Take care of yourselves. Be the best version of yourselves. No storm is the end of the story for you. There's so much more that God has for you in this life, and embrace and receive all of it that he has. So I look forward to seeing you next time. It's been a pleasure having you aboard. But until then, much love to all of you and your families, and take care of yourselves, and we'll see you again.